Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Men and Hearts podcast. Super excited to be back with you guys today for another video with this podcast. It is our joy to hopefully bring joy and light to your journey wherever you're at on your OCD healing journey and your mental health journey. So I'm super encouraged to be able to walk alongside you guys, and I do one-on-one coaching. I also do this podcast and social media resources and tips, hoping that you guys can experience freedom and healing for your journey wherever you're at, and that you would be encouraged to be effective for God's kingdom and find healing for your journey. So, thank you guys for tuning in today. We're going to be talking about OCD distortions the next few podcasts, and I'm just going to be kind of running through different distortions of OCD because this is huge, right? Within the realms of OCD, there's these magnified distortions that we all struggle with. If you have OCD, you'll understand this, that whether that's, I'll just run through a few of them here, but perfectionism, things like catastrophizing, things like needing control over everything in our world and in our lives. Intolerance of anxiety, that's huge. We struggle with being able to tolerate the physical sensation of anxiety, and different things like that. And then emotional reasoning too. And there's so many different distortions, and some of these kind of tie in together. So I'm just going to kind of go through the next podcast that I feel like going through, that I feel like are most relevant within OCD, and the things that we really need to be working on to be able to heal in our journeys. So to start off, I want to just kind of go through um, the difference between OCD perfectionism and normal perfectionism. I think this is just kind of understanding OCD in itself is different than normal, perfectionism and what the world might think of perfectionism. When you think of just an example, when you think of someone striving to do well at school, right? Or they really want to get a good grade on their test, or they want to be the best athlete, the best player on their team, and they're like, you might call them a perfectionist because they're trying to do things, and be really good at these things, and that's good. And perfectionism in itself, like obviously we want to learn to be okay with mistakes and all these different things. But the difference between that and OCD perfectionism, I would say, is the OCD kind of stems from a rejection mindset, and it stems from compulsive behavior, and that we're, when you're striving to do good on a test, right? Or to be a good student, and to have a 4.0 GPA, and those type of things. Those are things that give you life, that, man, they give you a feeling of success after you accomplish them, right? In OCD perfectionism, it can look like things that you're doing out of a compulsive behavior to try to protect yourself from being rejected. And I'll go into different examples of what that looks like in a little bit. But yeah, I just wanted to give that kind of difference between OCD perfectionism and normal perfectionism. Is that perfectionism tends to stem from things that we don't want to be doing. We don't want to be doing these compulsive behaviors because they take so much time, and they're things that are not helpful to our journey, and they're really hurting us in our minds and everything. There's no success story like you would on trying to succeed and being a 4.0 student or whatever. This is very much things that are way distorted, that's way catastrophized, which is a very or another distortion in OCD. So yeah. How does I want to kind of go through, just give you guys some examples. I love giving examples using my personal story, and things that I went through in my own story, to be able to help you guys so that you can feel encouraged to know that, one, you're not alone, and two, be encouraged for what God has taught me in my journey in my life, that it might encourage you on your journey and wherever you're at and whatever you're going through. So, with that being said, how does perfectionism infiltrate our lives in OCD? So how does it kind of, get in every perfectionism in itself? I just want to say this, I guess first, it tries to infiltrate every little aspect of our lives within OCD. I mean, whether it's the simplest of tasks like sending a text message, or the bigger things like speaking in front of a bunch of people, or things that would normally cause people fear and anxiety. Perfectionism can it can infiltrate every part of our life. So I just want to say that there, and to know that if you have OCD, you struggle with perfectionism in a big way, in a way that's very distorted from reality, for what's it's very irrational. That's what a lot of OCD is there's a lot of irrational fears, irrational distortions that we believe that we're living in, and then it leads to compulsive behavior, which just leads to our suffering and things that are really hard. So just some common examples, and really these are just compulsive behaviors that are compulsive or that are perfectionistic compulsions that we struggle with within OCD. And I gave some from all the different subsets of OCD because I like to, we can get so caught up in the subset. Like I need to figure out what subset I'm having and get that figured out in OCD because there's so many different things that OCD can attach to. But I just wanted to give you guys kind of an example from a broad range of different subsets in OCD to show you that they are all the same, that they all stem from the same core fears, like we talked about in my last video on getting to the root of our OCD struggles and rejection. I mean, they all stem from really this core fear of rejection, and that's what perfectionism really is, right? Is this core fear, and perfectionism is really stemming from our core fear of rejection and not wanting to be hurt in that way, not wanting to experience anything that might be hard or hurtful towards us because of that deep hole in our hearts that we need God to heal in our lives, right? So, the first thing is compulsively cleaning around the house to have it be perfect or just right. I know this is something that I've struggled with in my OCD journey, and something that I think a lot of people struggle with in general. And you have to just be aware of the difference between when you're living in compulsion and when you're living in just wanting to have something clean in the house. And I think a very good distinction for me, and one, you don't need to figure like it's perfectionistic. I have struggled with being perfectionist about my OCD journey and making sure I do everything right on my healing journey so that I'm limiting, so that I have zero compulsions at all, and I never struggle with OCD at all in my life. And if I ever have a compulsion, and that's just more perfectionism trying to, and it can turn into a compulsive thing in itself, which seems kind of funny. But yeah. Um, so yeah, cleaning around the house to have it perfect or just right, and that can look like whether that's walking through your house and you see all these like you're walking and your brain's attaching to all these different things that are out of place that aren't right, and you feel like you have to do this over and over again. You have to get it completely right, but it's never going to be good enough. And that's really what OCD is. You keep on doing things over, and there's these compulsive behaviors that you do over and over again. You clean the house one, but then you don't like it, and you notice a dirt spot that's on it 2 seconds later, and you're like cleaning it again and again and again. And that's that perfectionism that can infiltrate our lives. Another thing is checking text messages or emails over and over again to ensure you're not offending anyone or ruminating in your head if people are mad at you. I think that those kind of go hand in hand, and something, again, I've struggled with in my journey of OCD, and God has had to heal my heart from this and really getting to the core of what's going on there. But yeah, checking text messages, when you're sending a text message or you're sending an email or whatever, and making sure it's just right, making sure it's perfect so that you're not, making sure there's no sort of hint of any sort of boldness or maybe, what's the right word, assertiveness in there that may be offending someone, and making sure every little detail of that email or text message is right. Again, these are just examples that I've experienced in my own life, and that I'm sure that some of you guys experienced in your lives. And these are just examples that I want you guys to take, and you all struggle with your own different subsets, own things that you go through within OCD. But these are just things and examples that you can hopefully apply to your story and whatever you're going through right now. So. Um, another thing is pondering over and over again if your significant other is right for you, right? This gets into a relationship OCD, and it can attach to our relationship with God or a relationship with our significant other, or just friends or whoever, right? And just making sure that this person is right for you, that they meet all your standards, and continuing to ruminate over and over again in your head and trying to figure out every little thing. And making sure that they're right for you, and that can just become a compulsive behavior, which stems from perfectionism, and just making sure that you have the perfect person in your life. The last example that I'm going to give falls into the realms of scrupulosity, checking your relationship with God to make sure it feels right, to make sure that you're saved. I think this is such a huge thing within Christianity. Even people who don't have OCD, it's where like, I just don't feel good in my relationship with God. I just don't feel Him. I just don't feel His presence. And I think we need to take a step back when we hear that and be like, okay, like we're not in our relationship with God, like in our relationship with others, like we're not constantly checking our feelings, making sure every little thing is right and in order, and we have this feeling of joy or happiness or satisfaction all the time, right? Like it's a relationship, and we're not always gonna feel that in relationships, right? And yes, we should experience love and joy and God's compassion and his affection towards us when we read his word. And yes, we should experience that in our relationships, right? But it's not distorted where we're like checking for that every single second. And I just feel like um, this is just within OCD in itself. Like guys, if things are adding pressure to your life, if things are adding fear and anxiety and worry to your life, and things continue to build up, just know that that is anxiety and that is OCD, and that is what we want to continue to let go of in our lives, right? To be able to experience it, but know that like we have to let go of this pressure. We have to like be still and know that He is God and to hold our peace, right? And I think I just wanted to say that right now because I feel like that's such a big thing in our lives that if things start to add pressure and we start to like continue to feel like hyper vigilant about every little thing in our lives and every little detail, making sure that's going perfectly, like that's perfectionism and that's OCD and that's the practice of mindfulness of letting things come, letting thoughts come, letting the anxiety flow inside of you, and letting it go. And the acceptance and commitment therapy of committing to living your life and to experiencing joy and to no matter what emotion, no matter what thoughts you feel, and to starve those compulsions, to not do the compulsive behaviors. It's so important when we try to heal from OCD. So those are just some examples of how perfectionism tries to infiltrate our lives within OCD. And yeah, I hope that you can relate to one of those, maybe not the specific examples that I gave, but I hope that you can infer and apply those to your life in a way that knowing that you struggle with perfectionism and it's something that we need to root out of our lives. So, um, what do all of these subsets of perfectionism have in common? I mean, to me, it's very obvious when I look at all of these different things. When I look at, oh, compulsively cleaning around the house to having things be just right. You're afraid of rejection. You're afraid of things not being right. And when we look at checking text messages or emails, because you're afraid people might be mad at you because they're going to reject you if things aren't just right, if you say something wrong, or if you offend someone in the tiniest way pondering if your significant other is right for you. I mean, that's huge on perfectionism and wanting them to be this perfect person and have this perfect feeling all the time. That's just way distorted and something that we're never going to be able to attain. It's not practical. It's irrational. Um, Type of fear. And same with your relationship with God and making sure it feels right or that you're always saved and trying to do all these things to make sure you're saved. And it stems from our own rejection wounds and mindsets that we have and these core deep fears that God really wants to heal our hearts from when we look at all these different fears. So, and that's what I'm about. That's why I did the video last week, and I'll continue to do videos on helping you get to the root of your OCD struggles because the problem is not these, initial thoughts and compulsions and all these different things. That they're actually showing us and revealing to us deeper things that we need to heal from in our lives. And that's what God wants to do. He wants to do the work in our hearts in that area. And He wants to continue to show us His love and help us experience Him in greater ways so that we can be children of Him and experience the abundant life that Jesus gives. God doesn't want us to live in this compulsive behavior all the time and just living in slavery where we're not able to be present to people and present in our relationships. He wants us to live healed and free. So, um, yeah, and just to continue to move on here, I want to give you guys three things we can do today. I always want to be applicable. I always want to give you guys things and tips and insights that you don't just watch these videos and it's like, okay, that was great and cool, but I want to give you guys things and encouragements that you can go apply to your life because we have to apply things to our life, right? We can't just listen to a podcast or listen to a video or go to therapy or go to counseling and just expect results to just come to wait on God, right? No, we need to be faithful to God to take a step to say, not in a hurry or in a rush, but just say, God, I'm willing to do whatever, and I want to apply this to my life. I want to slowly to take baby steps to apply the things that I learned, to take action on them in our lives. We have to be actionable people when we heal from OCD. So I would encourage you guys with these three things today. One, recognize our broken hearts and our need for unconditional love to break in. I feel like I could just stop there, right? I mean, that is huge. I mean, like I talked about before, and all my videos so far, and everything. Like, we need to recognize that we have a broken heart, that these thoughts are not the problem, that these things that we do, that every little detail we try to figure out to think that this is the problem. No, we have a broken heart, and God is in the business of restoring our hearts, restoring our character, restoring our minds and our hearts so that we can be healed and free and experience this great, amazing love that He has for us. To know that we don't have to be stuck in perfectionism, that we don't have to be living this perfectionistic lifestyle that is keeping us from a relationship with God and keeping us from being able to experience wholeness in our relationships and joy and fun and laughter. And, perfectionism takes away our laughter, it takes away our ability to have fun because we're so caught up in cleaning around the house or checking all these text messages over and over again or ruminating inside of our head for 8 hours a day. And no, like, we need to understand that these thoughts are not us, that we need to take a deep breath and to just live our lives and to experience God's love for us. I mean, unconditional love, right? Because the opposite of perfectionism is knowing that we are imperfect people and that we're unconditionally loved by God in heaven. I mean, Romans 8, I think of Romans 8:38 and 39, that neither death nor life nor angels nor demons, I'm gonna botch the entire verse, but basically nothing can separate us from the love of our God in Jesus Christ. We have to lean into that verse and know that we're unconditionally loved. And I'm not saying just this, like, we can also fall into the this is probably a different topic for a different time, but just want to say this just in case you're struggling with this. If you're like trying to fight scripture and use that to fight against your thoughts, you're doing it wrong. Like, you don't use scripture to, like, you have an OCD intrusive thought and you compulsively say like no, like it's maybe saying it like, if you maybe it's saying you're going to be separated from God and you're never going to be saved, and you try to fight back with it by saying no, God's word says this. It says that uh, I'm never going to be separated from your love. Like, that is reinforcing the fear. Like, you don't want to fight against intrusive thoughts. You want to recognize that they are not you, they are not from God, that they're just thoughts, and you want to have the using the exposure mindset too. It's like you can do the maybe if not, maybe it will happen, maybe it won't happen, maybe I will be saved, maybe I won't be saved type of mindset, and that is really just helping you expose yourself to the fear that's keeping you in bondage, and knowing in your heart that you are saved deep down, and knowing that you can't achieve this perfect certainty that OCD wants. I didn't think I mentioned that in the distortions, but that's huge. I mean, intolerance of uncertainty is massive in OCD. So the second thing that I want you guys to be able to apply to your life. So recognize the first thing, recognize your broken heart. You have to recognize that so that you can take a step and you can realize the problem is not the problem. The second thing is go all in at eliminating compulsive behaviors like checking, ruminating, and any other thing that would be trying to compulsions are just things that we try to do to alleviate the anxiety that we feel, to alleviate or try to find certainty on different things. When you look at checking your relationship with God, that's a compulsion. Checking that you're saved over and over again, ruminating inside your head over and over again if this person's right for you, or checking text messages or emails to ensure that you're not offending anyone. Cleaning around the house compulsively to have everything just right or perfect. Those are going back to the examples that I gave. And I would encourage you to stop these compulsions. Guys, I used to think like, well, these compulsions are, I can't stop them. What do you mean? They're just impossible. Like, they feel automatic, and they feel like if I don't do this compulsion, something catastrophic is going to happen. Something really bad is going to happen. That my worst fears are going to come true. Super irrational things are going to come true. And that's our OCD brains talking, right? That's not how we really feel, but that's what it feels like in our brains and our minds, that we have to do this thing. And if we don't, this terrible thing is going to happen. Like, we're going to go to hell. We're going to never be happy in our marriage or whatever, or our relationship. Um, we're gonna offend someone and they're not gonna like us, and we're gonna be rejected. Going back to this rejection mindset. But when we can actually eliminate these compulsive behaviors and recognize that these are the things that are reinforcing OCD, guys, the moment I realized that I could stop ruminating, that I didn't have to like feel like it was something that I was a slave to, that I could lean into God's word and realize I am not a slave to fall back into fear, that I can't control these intrusive thoughts that I have, but I can't control how I respond to them, and I can control um, the ways that. Um, sorry, my wife just walked in, so I'm taking a delay in what I was just going on. Hi, babe. You want to come say hello to the podcast world? All right. I'm not cutting this out, by the way. It's going to be in the podcast. So, all right. Anyways, quick tangent there. I just wanted to say hello to my wife. Love her. Anyway, where the heck was I at? Okay. Um, yeah. So just eliminating compulsions in our life, right? We want to go all in at that, and knowing and understanding that we are not a slave to this, that we are not a slaves to fall back into fear. Romans 8:15, that we are adopted into God's family as sons and daughters, and we don't have to live in compulsive behavior and things that are, and for me it was enough to know that, like, okay, if these are the things that are destroying my life right now, if these are the things like checking and ruminating, doing all these things, if these are the things that are keeping me in bondage to fear and OCD, then I want to do whatever the heck I can to cut them out of my life, and I don't care what it says, I don't care what I have to feel. And having that all in mindset um, really helped me progress in my journey, because it was like, wow. In the moment I started to realize and cut out these compulsive behaviors, it was like healing to my heart and healing to my soul and healing to my mind. And I finally began to feel some peace in me for the first time in months, and it's like, wow, I can stop this and I don't have to live in this and I'm not a slave to this. So understand that you have power and authority over your compulsions, and you don't have to do these things that are keeping you in slavery. And that is the number one thing that we need to do in OCD, is to cut those compulsions out, because those are huge and they're the thing that's reinforcing the cycle that is keeping us stuck. So the third thing that I want to encourage you guys in, and this is kind of a question to ponder, to journal about. Ask yourselves what the cost of living in a perfectionistic lifestyle is. What's the cost, right? For me, this goes into what I was talking about previously with the compulsions. I had to realize and to ask myself, what is the cost of me living in compulsions, and the cost of me living this perfectionistic lifestyle? I mean, the cost was my joy, was my peace, was fruitful relationships, was me being able to have a sound mind, to be effective for God's kingdom, to be able to have fun, to laugh. That was what I was giving up by trying to live in this compulsive, be perfectionistic lifestyle. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not trying to get like I want to do whatever I can to get my life back, to get my joy back, to steal it back from everything that OCD has taken from me. So ask yourselves the cost, and let that motivate you in your healing journey. Let that motivate you to heal, to take a step, and to experience God's love as your Father in your life. Um, yeah, and I just want to give you guys a final encouragement here as we end this podcast. I hope this was an encouragement to you, but just kind of a benediction, a thing to encourage you as you go out from this place, as you go out from tuning into this podcast. To help you fight against perfectionism, we need to learn to accept weaknesses and exercise full humility in our lives as Christ, right? In order to accept that to cut out compulsive behavior and to cut out perfectionistic lifestyles, we need to accept that we are weak, that we will never do everything perfectly, and that with that, we are more than loved, that we are deeply loved by God by being imperfect people, because God Himself, Jesus Christ, is the perfect Son who came down to die for us. He hung on a cross willingly, and 3 days later, He rose again so that we could be restored back to a relationship with our Father. That's the gospel, guys. And if you haven't accepted Jesus into your heart, I would encourage you to take a step to accept Jesus into your heart and to experience His love that He has for you. I would love to come alongside you and help you within that. But yeah, we got to accept weaknesses and know that we're weak, that we fall short in so many ways, that we're gonna mess up and make a million mistakes in this life. Like, that's such a huge thing in OCD, is we hate making mistakes, and we don't ever want to make a mistake, because that means we're gonna feel the deep shame, the deep hurt of rejection, and no one wants to experience that, right? but knowing that Jesus Christ came down to this earth to experience that, to experience the shame and rejection, encourages me to know that I can experience it and be okay and know that I'm loved no matter what. To go back to that verse, Romans 8:38, to know that nothing will separate me from his love. If God is for us, who could be against us? And a final verse that I want to encourage you guys with today is 2 Corinthians 12:9, where Paul is just he's basically, some context in this verse is Paul has this thorn in his side, and he just has this really hard thing, this really hard struggle that is going on in his life, and he just wants it to be taken away. He wants it to be gone. This could be OCD for you and for me, and God says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly in my weaknesses, can't say that word, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." And guys, that verse is so true. It's huge in our life to know the grace of God in our lives. That God's grace is sufficient for us. That his power is made perfect in our weaknesses. So when we're weak, it goes on to say that we are strong. And that is an encouragement to me, to be weak, to know that we are imperfect, to desire to be imperfect, to desire to make mistakes, because knowing that that produces God's power, and it gets to show that God is the only perfect one in our lives, and that we can rest in his power and his strength and in his humility in our life. So, just a final encouragement to you guys. Fight against perfectionism. You guys got this. I know that you can continue to find healing and freedom for your journey and for your life. And I hope and pray that this was an encouragement to you to continue to take steps and to apply these things to your life. This is the Men at Hearts podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I hope and pray that this brought light and joy to your journey wherever you're at. I do one-on-one coaching. I'd love to work with you if you are struggling and you feel like you need some extra help and support. That's a good applicable step that you guys can take in your journey. So I'd love to work with you. Thank you guys for tuning in. Give us a like on our YouTube, our social media pages. Follow us at Men at Hearts Ministries on all platforms. And yeah, until next time, see you later.